Unless you'd been living under a rock for the past few years. You've probably heard about the creepy clown craze that swept the globe. Remember all those reports of people in clown costumes lurking in the woods or standing on street corners? It was a massive wave of internet-fueled panic. Most of those sightings, thankfully, were just pranks or flat-out hoaxes. But it got a lot of people wondering, has anyone ever actually been murdered by a killer clown? Now, when you think killer clown, your mind probably jumped straight to John Wayne Gacy. He was a notorious serial killer who sometimes performed as Pogo the Clown at children's parties. But here's a creepy little detail. As far as anyone knows, Gacy never killed anyone while he was in his clown costume. In fact, when he was asked about the idea, he apparently found it completely bizarre. So, the most infamous killer clown wasn't a killer clown in the way we imagine. So, does that mean the whole concept is just fiction? Something cooked up for horror movies and spooky stories? Well, this channel isn't about urban legends. So you know the answer is going to be a chilling yes. There really was a killer clown. Let's travel back to the spring of 1990, in Wellington, Florida. A woman named Marlene Warren was at home with her son when she heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, she was greeted by a figure straight out of a nightmare. It was a clown, not just any clown, but one with all the classic features. A bright orange wig, a red nose, and a wide painted-on smile. The clown was holding a bouquet of flowers and 2 balloons. One was a silver mylar balloon with the words, "You're the greatest," printed on it. Marlene was probably confused, maybe a little unnerved. Who was this person? Before she could get any answers, the clown, in a complete and terrifying contradiction to the cheerful balloon's message, pulled out a gun. They shot Marlene in the face, right there on her own doorstep, then calmly walked back to their white Chrysler LeBaron and drove away, leaving a scene of unimaginable horror. Marlene Warren died 2 days later in the hospital. Her son had witnessed the entire thing. The investigation began immediately, but it was incredibly difficult. Who was the person behind the makeup? The getaway car was found abandoned a few days later in a supermarket parking lot. Inside, police found orange fibers, likely from the clown's wig, and brown human hair. But with the forensic technology of 1990, it wasn't enough to identify a suspect. The trail went cold. For years, the case of the killer clown remained one of Florida's most baffling and terrifying unsolved mysteries. The image of that smiling clown committing such a brutal act haunted the community. The case would remain unsolved for an astonishing 27 years. It felt like something out of a Stephen King novel, where the monster just disappears, leaving everyone to wonder if it will ever come back. But as we all know, technology never stops advancing. Decades later, investigators decided to reopen the cold case. They had new tools at their disposal. Specifically, major advancements in DNA testing. They went back to the evidence collected from the getaway car all those years ago, the orange wig fibers and the strand of brown hair. This time, they could build a much more detailed DNA profile. And that profile led them to a name: Sheila Keen. Now, who was Sheila Keen? Back in 1990, she was a person of interest. She worked for Marlene's husband, Michael Warren, at his used car lot. And here's the twist. It was widely rumored that Sheila and Michael were having an affair. In fact, employees at the car lot told police that Michael and Sheila would often disappear together for long periods. Witnesses also came forward saying that just before the murder, a woman matching Sheila's description had bought a clown costume, flowers, and 2 balloons from local shops. The pieces were all there, but without the hard DNA evidence, police couldn't make an arrest. So what happened to Sheila Keen and Michael Warren after the murder? Well, they stayed together. Their businesses eventually went bankrupt, and they left Florida. But here's the most shocking part. In 2002, 12 years after Marlene was murdered, Sheila Keen married Michael Warren. Yes, he married the woman who was the prime suspect in his wife's murder. They moved to Tennessee and started a new life together, running a popular restaurant called the Purple Cow. For all intents and purposes, they had gotten away with it. But the past has a way of catching up with you. In 2017, armed with the new DNA evidence linking Sheila Keen Warren to the crime scene, police finally made their move. They arrested her in Virginia, and when her mugshot was released, it sent a new wave of chills down everyone's spine. There she was, the woman accused of being the killer clown, smiling. A wide, knowing, and utterly gleeful smile for the camera. It was as if the painted-on grin from 27 years earlier had finally become real. The legal proceedings took years, but in 2023, just before her trial was set to begin, Sheila Keen Warren pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison. After nearly 3 decades, the mystery of the killer clown was finally solved. The monster wasn't a supernatural entity or a random madman. It was a person filled with jealousy and rage, who used a disguise of childhood innocence to commit a horrific act of violence. It turns out, sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us, until they decide to put on a costume. So, if you're ever having a tough time with a new person in your family's life, just take a moment to appreciate that. Hopefully, they didn't murder one of your parents while dressed as a party entertainer. It's a low bar, but hey, perspective is everything. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating and chilling as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of true crime. See you next time.